Welcome to ABA to Z. I'm your host, Tara Zeller, Chief Empowerment Officer at RBT Connection. Today's topic is the competency assessment, what it is, and how to pass it. We keep getting so many inquiries about the competency assessment. This competency assessment is one of the steps on your journey to becoming a registered behavior technician, and it's one that has a lot of people confused. RBT Connection is dedicated to training, mentoring, and empowering those who are using applied behavior analysis to improve the lives of their clients, and also those who want to get into the field and just don't know either where to start or what the next steps are. So I want to be your guide. I want to keep it simple and concise and clear and to the point so you can have actionable steps to go forth and have this competency assessment conducted. We also have a whole series for the RBT credential on our website. If you want to go ahead and check that out. After this episode, there's going to be a lot more information about the whole career as a RBT, but this one is specifically dedicated to competency assessment. So let's get right to it. What is it? It is the step after the 40-hour course, right? So to become a registered behavior technician, RBT, you take a 40-hour course with a provider, right? It happens outside of the professional board. It happens outside of the behavior analyst certification board with a company that is providing that training. So competency assessment comes right after the 40-hour training, and it is the practical application of the lessons that you learned in the 40-hour course. It's hands-on, right? So you're going to be with a supervisor. The BACB calls them a responsible assessor. I'll cover that as another topic along the way in this short video. So you have your tasks conducted in one of three manners, either role play, with client, or interview. So there's 20 tasks on the competency assessment. They are the key areas that the board has decided that you must show competency on in order to meet the bare minimum requirements to get into the field and the career as an RBT. Side note, in the 40-hour training, there's 34 tasks on the task list. So this is shorter, 20 items. Okay, and the goal is to ensure that you can apply these skills in real world settings, right? So we covered what it is. We know when it takes place. It's happening after you complete the 40-hour course. So that's important, right? You don't do it first. You have to make sure that you have that certificate under your belt. The board will look at the time that you completed your 40-hour course and the time that you completed your competency assessment. Got Sage in the background over there. I don't know if you can still see her. And so additionally, during your competency assessment step, you might be asked to do your level 2 background check at this time. There's a really important caveat. So a lot of people that want to become RBTs already work in the human service field. So many of us already have a level 2 background check. So for those of you who do, it cannot be older than 6 months once your supervisor starts administering the assessment and signs off on it, because one of the roles of your assessor is to verify that your level 2 background check is no older than 6 months old. So you do have to have that in order to qualify. So if you don't have one, okay, get a brand new one. If you do, it can't be older than 6 months old. Very important. And that level 2 background check is where you do your fingerprints. And whoever's conducting your competency assessment, hopefully they'll have a guide or, a list of places to send you to, because they need to be able to access the result in order to prove that you've passed it and that it in fact meets the requirement for no older than 6 months old. And then I already mentioned responsible assessor. Who conducts your competency assessment? That is the name that the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, the BACB, the board that certifies RBTs, registered behavior technicians, so many acronyms, so many new titles, we'll cover them. The responsible assessor is the title that the BACB has given to the person who conducts your competency assessment. Essentially, they're your first supervisor. Because when you're working as an RBT, you have to have a supervisor. and they have to be supervising you for no less than 5% of your total work as an RBT, right? So this person becomes your first supervisor. They are your ticket into the field, right? They're that person who walks you over the crosswalk getting in. They're going to conduct the assessment, they're going to sign off on it, and you're going to list them once you do apply as your supervisor. So they're going to get the email when everything's complete saying, hey, this person wants to become an RBT. Did they check all the boxes that they need to check based on the requirements, which I'm going to continue to cover, okay? So as far as who, we know that they're called a responsible assessor, but what are the qualifications or credentials that they need to have, right? So they need to be BACB certified. They could be certified at the level of board certified behavior analyst. They could have a D at the end, which would mean they have a doctorate level. They could be a board certified assistant behavior analyst, which would be BCABA little a, meaning they're assistant behavior analyst. They're qualified as well. So that is the credentials that you're looking for in the person who's going to conduct your competency assessment, okay? Now the interesting thing is you don't have to be employed in order to have a responsible assessor conduct your competency assessment. It's an important thing to note. So the board states that the responsible assessor is a BACB certificate, like I just said, and they also have to complete an 8-hour supervision course, and they are responsible for overseeing the competency assessment. And the rule is that they can either be employed at the same organization as, or have a contractual relationship with the applicant, you, and the clients involved in the assessment, right? And the same thing goes if there is an assistant assessor on the case, right? So the good news is that you don't have to go take that 40-hour course and then go find a job to have your competency assessment completed. You can find somebody who is a responsible assessor who meets those qualifications through a training company or an individual BCBA who's willing to conduct it, as long as you have a contractual obligation with that person or organization, and that the client that you're doing your competency assessment with is also under a contractual obligation with that organization or person conducting your competency assessment. So hopefully I simplified that. If not, let me know in the comments. I'm willing to say it in a different way if you need me to. So also, I'm sure you're wondering, what's the cost of the assessment, right? So if you go the private route, you can expect to pay somewhere between $400, maybe $1,000 for the competency assessment. But on the other side, you know, as I mentioned earlier, some employers might cover the cost if you agree to work with them. So if you go and you seek employment, right, you get your 40-hour training and you go out and you look for a job with an ABA company, some companies are willing to have their BCBA or BCABA on staff conduct that competency assessment for you. So that's another option. You have two options. So it's really a personal decision. Do you want to invest in yourself and move forward independently? So you've done your 40-hour course, you go find someone to conduct your competency assessment, you ultimately sit for the board exam, and then you go and look for a job as a RBT. Or do you want to do your 40-hour course, look for an employer, or maybe you did your 40-hour course with an employer. That's an option too, right? And then move forward and get your competency assessment with them and continue employment there. So you have a few options. That is the good news. We all like choices. We push that in ABA all day long. Choices, 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 right? They're both valid. It's just whatever situation's best for you. How long does it take? Because it's hands-on, because it's competency, the duration will vary, right? It could take a few hours. It might stretch over a few days, maybe a few weeks, depending on feedback, depending on the format of how the competency assessment is administered, right? So it's not like an exam that you're sitting at. It's an assessment of your skills. The BACB allows you to retry any task. Remember, 20 tasks, 20, sorry, I'm trying to use my hands. And you can retry after 24 hours on any task that you didn't pass. So be prepared for constructive criticism. Be prepared for that. And it's also built into the role as an RBT anyway. So it's a good place to start. And hopefully the person, your responsible assessor, your supervisor, is good at providing that constructive feedback in a way that you can redo the task the next day or after 24 hours at the least and pass it, right? So that's good news as well. There are some common pitfalls that my team did research on that we learned when submitting your documentation or when doing your competency assessment, and we want to help you know about the common pitfalls and how to avoid them. So around 24% of RBT applications get denied, and they're often due to incomplete or incorrect paperwork, right? To avoid this, there's a little part at the top of your competency assessment that asks for your BACB, Behavior Analyst Certification Board, ID. And you attain that number by creating your account on their website. There's a step where you create your account, and then there's a step later where you're applying and you're submitting all your documents. Don't do that part yet. But if you want to go ahead and create your account, you get your BACB ID, put it at the top of your competency assessment. At the top, you're going to put your name, your BACB ID, and then it's going to ask you for some more details. Your supervisor is going to check off on all the tasks you completed. They're going to identify the little things about, was it role play, was it interview, was it with client. They're going to write their certification number in it, and they're going to sign it and date it, and you're going to turn it in. So make sure that everything on your form is accurate, everything's checked where it needs to be checked, it's initialed. So next to each of the tasks, your assessor, supervisor, however we want to call it, is going to initial and check those boxes per task, okay? So make sure it is thoroughly complete. So now let's get into how to pass it. I have a little quick guide, right? Know your content. Review the assessment, review the competency assessment. It's already available online, right? So go through it and just review it, get comfortable with it. It's not so much about knowing what something is, but it's knowing how to implement that thing. So again, it's the step where you prove competence. If you have access to your training, go back and go through it. You know, Apple Tree Connection has a 40-hour training. We give you 6 months access to it. Go in and check it out. Refresh yourself on some of the topics that you're good at and even the ones you struggled with, right? And then practice makes perfect. So engage in any mock scenarios that you can. Look for videos of people doing their competency assessment. Role play with people if you can. Get your skill sharpened. The more hands-on practice you can do, the better. If your 40-hour course came with any kind of study guide or guided notes, this is a good opportunity to review those as well. Remember, during your assessment, you're going to be getting that corrective feedback, so be open to it, right? You are totally new at this. This is the first time you're doing it. So, so what if you're not perfect? Just keep going. And if you're not getting the kind of feedback that you think is corrective enough for you to go and redo it, ask for more feedback, So it's in your hands. And then also just stay calm. It's just a chance for you to demonstrate what you've learned, right? And again, this is probably the first time you're doing it, and probably the first time you're doing it in front of somebody with a credential, right? So stay as calm as you can. And again, lean into the fact that maybe you're not going to do it perfectly, but that corrective feedback should help you feel confident to get it right the next time. I hope this helps and you feel more prepared to tackle the competency assessment. We do have a whole blog series on all things RBT and ABA, so feel free to check out our website, appletreeconnection.com. We love it when you leave us comments, and if there's any more topics that you want us to cover, feel free to post that as well in the comments. So best of luck. You've got this. We need great RBTs in the field. I hope this guide was simple and easy to follow. And check us out for more. Follow us on all of our socials. And, be sure to subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be putting out a lot more ABA to Z series videos in the coming days, weeks, months, and so forth.